So we're good?
Yeah.
Okay, today we're going to demonstrate the use of the drop saw. The drop saw is used whenever we're cutting across the grain. So we can never use the drop saw to cut with the grain, only across. We can cut using a number of angles or from a range of 45 degrees in one direction to 45 degrees in the other direction. And the most common example of the use of the drop saw to cut at 45 degrees is when we're creating a frame. So that's what we're going to demonstrate today, using the drop saw to cut at 45. First, I'll demonstrate just the parts of the drop saw and how the drop saw works. It operates by this handle here lifting the safety guard, and then the movement of the drop saw down and through the timber. The drop saw can also work as a slide saw, in which case we drop the guard, retract it out, drop it down and cut through the material in this direction. That would only be done if we had a very large material, or in some cases when we're cutting a large 45 degree angle. Next to the handle which lifts the safety guard, we have the trigger, I guess, to turn the machine on. Works in this direction or in this way. And now we're ready to mark out and prepare for our cut. Whenever we use the drop saw, we want to make sure that we mark out our angle nice and clearly so we can see where the blade is going to sit across the whole length of the timber, and we always use a set square. So I'll mark out a line like so, and now I'm ready to cut on the waste side of that line. Whenever we're using the drop saw, we always need to clamp our work, and I'm going to use a piece of scrap to protect my job. I can lower the blade without turning it on to make sure it's in the right place, and then clamp my job. With that nice and flush up against the bed there, I'm now ready to cut. In terms of PPE, I need my safety glasses and my ear protection, and we're ready to go. It's very important that you leave the saw running whilst you remove it from the cut. So the saw will be on, still on, and once it's reached the top, then we can turn it off. That ensures a nice clean cut. Alright, so that's a straight 90-degree cut, and you can see the fence here is set at 90 degrees. In order to move it to a 45-degree angle, there's a trigger underneath and a lock here which we unlock. We rotate the whole saw until we can see 45 degree marked out on the compass or the protractor there. We then lock it in using this knob here. There we go, and it's a good idea to do a practice cut to test that, to make sure that it is exactly 45 degrees. And once we've done that practice cut, we can use the combination square to ensure that we have the exact correct angle. Alright, so when cutting a frame, there are a number of techniques that we can use. One technique would involve cutting a 45-degree angle right at the end of the timber and then creating our measurements or our marking out once we've done that first cut. So I'll demonstrate a cut at 45 using the combination square. Right at the end of the job. Again, lay down the blade to make sure that you're in the right place. Protecting your job and clamping it. And again, we're ready to operate the saw now, with our personal protective equipment on. Okay, make sure the blades stop moving and protected before you move your scrap. And we can now check that inside the combination square to make sure it's spot on. If you don't get a spot on 45-degree angle, you end up with a frame that's out of whack and not square, like you can see this one. So technique wise, if I have a dimension that I need to mark out now, I can mark it out from the outside or the inside of that cut. If I was to say my outside edge here was 20, I could measure 20. And I need to use my combination square to go back in now from that point. Alright, in order to make that cut, I don't have to move this around. Okay, that would involve me having to recut and retest the 45-degree angle. I can actually turn this piece over and mark this all the way around. So now if I'm making this cut, I have my long sides on the same side and my short sides on the same edge. That's perfect. Check the position of my saw and clamp my job in place. But before I make this cut, I'm also going to set up a situation on this side which will allow me to always keep that same dimension. So if you want two of your frames to be the same length, you cut those two first using this setup with the guide here. Thank you, man. Alright, so we can lock this onto the bench. And it's a good idea just to make sure this is actually flush up against that. We can make our cut. And now you can see I don't have to mark out my next piece because I can flip it over, press it up against that guide, re-clamp, recut. And I have two identical sides which fit together at a perfect 45-degree angle.